I did have a clarity and a direction as an artist. I wanted to make Christian music, but make it more fresh and do
Mhm.
a pop thing. So I think they were drawn to that because a lot of Christian music just sounds the same.
Sweet. Well, Sarah, nice to meet you. Thanks again for doing this. This podcast is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about how you got to where you are now and the new song that you recently put out.
Okay, that sounds good. And where are you located?
I'm in south of Nashville. I think you're in Nashville, correct?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're not too far away.
Yeah, I'm down in Williamson County.
Okay, got you. I'm just
Yes.
downtown.
Oh, very, very cool.
Mhm.
So I always start off with born and raised. You grew up in Alabama, is that what I read?
I did, yes. I grew up in a very small town,
Was
Athens, Alabama.
Yeah, what was that like?
It was fun. I mean, it's definitely
Fine.
it's fun. It's all I knew for most of my life. So Alabama is such a sweet state. And, I grew up in, like I said, it was so small. Like the road that I grew up on was literally named after my family and like my neighbors
No way.
we're all related. So like Christmas and holidays, you just walk next door and the whole family's there. So
That's cool though. I wish I had that. I mean, my family, I was born and raised in San Diego, and my parents were the only ones there. Like all my other extended family were all around the country. So it was like once a year you'd see other people.
yeah. Yeah, I guess it is pretty rare. So I'm very thankful for it. I love my family and we were always making music growing up and
Yeah,
we
it seems like you come from a very musical household. I'm curious real quick on your street. Your street name was named after your family? Like
so
has your family been there for ever? It sounds like I don't know.
so it was named, so the name is Gooden Road, and it was named after my grandmother. So my grandmother's maiden name, and she had like 10 siblings, and that was the house that she was in, her and my grandfather. She kept that house. She asked for it out of all the siblings, and so she's the one that stayed there. And they just kind of remodeled that house, and then my parents built a house right next to her, and then my parents like or my mom's brother built a house on the other side. So they both lived next to their parents and then just like cousins,
Yeah.
just,
Wow.
yeah.
That's really cool. That's actually really cool. So you come from, like I say, a musical household, musical family, correct? Your dad like a he's a producer, right?
Yeah. He did some work just in like the Muscle Shoals era of music, worked with like Take Six and Brian McKnight and a bunch of other names that I don't even remember. But he was in that whole scene before I was born. So I don't know much about that side of him, which
Hmm.
is kind of a bummer, just stories that he's shared. And then he taught engineering at Full Sail in Orlando. So he definitely, you know, is he's a musician, he's a background singer, he's is a singer, he's a producer, does all the things. Built us a studio growing up, and then my older brother and I have two younger sisters. Yeah, we kind of all started a band.
Oh, awesome. All the siblings together, or just you and your two
So
sisters?
mainly me and my brother, and then my sisters would just kind of tag along because they're a little bit younger than us.
Hmm.
And then my brother and I, then we kind of started another band, and then my other sisters had their own little thing going on. So it was all together, but at the same time separate. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Is mom a musician as well?
she's the only one that's not. She's a nurse.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah. So dad and the rest of the siblings, all musicians.
yeah, that was my upbringing. And my mom was like always super supportive, like we needed somebody in the family that was not a musician.
And when do you start playing? Like, were you in piano lessons really young or anything like that?
Yeah, I started piano lessons when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
And
And
were your other siblings in piano as well at that young?
um no, my brother played guitar and bass and drums.
Okay.
And yeah, I was the only one that started that young in piano. Maybe my younger sister, maybe she started pretty young. But yeah, from what I remember, I was the only one that started when I was 5, which is
Okay.
basically a baby.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And then do you start off like playing in front of people in the church, or is that kind of like your introduction into performing?
Yeah, we started in the church. My dad led worship at our little small church. And then one day, actually, he owned his own business. And uh, the business was like putting together like screen rooms and more in the construction world at this point. And he fell, I think, like 12 feet off of a
Oh my
ladder,
gosh.
and he broke his leg. And so he was just, it put him out. And I will never forget that season, because even though I knew piano, like I knew classical piano and how to read music, he sat me down one day and he taught me chords. And from then on, I fell in love with just like, okay, I feel like this is my thing. Like, I never loved sight reading. I always wanted to play by ear, but I didn't really understand what I was playing. And so he taught me, like, okay, this is how you play this song with just like different chords, and here's the different keys. And so from then on, I started playing with him at church. And then singing harmonies just kind of came natural.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that's how I started. And then started singing in my youth worship band at church.
Okay.
Just that was, I took that really seriously. And then that band kind of became my band. And we started traveling a little bit just locally, wherever we could open up at a festival, we would. And and so that's when everything kind of really started for me. At this point, I was a teenager. And I guess I'll continue to tell the story if you want.
Yeah, no, I want to hear the whole story because
Okay.
you're eventually. I want to know how you got to Nashville, and you
Yeah.
put out a bunch of records, so and
Yes.
EPs and albums and stuff, and yeah, I want to hear the whole story. That's cool.
Yeah. I haven't told this story in a long time, actually. So yeah, so this church band became our band. And of course, my dad built a studio. So we were always in the studio, like playing music together. We recorded like a CD. Did the
That's
whole
awesome.
thing.
Do you still
And
have it, the CD?
it's somewhere. Yeah, I think it's at my parents' house, but yes, it's somewhere. um, and this specific festival, are you familiar with the artist Plum?
The name sounds familiar, but I wouldn't
Okay.
know the music.
Okay. Well, they were more, I feel like more in the like early 2000s, like really popular in like the kind of Christian music rock scene. And they were headlining this festival, and we were like the opening slot. And Plum's band didn't even see us perform, but I remember we were kind of around them in the green room. And at the very end of the night, my dad was like, Sarah, you need to give Plum a copy of your CD. And I was like, no, I was so shy. I'm like, no way, she's never going to listen to it. I'm not doing that. And he kind of nudged me over there. And so I'll never forget, she was getting in her van to leave to go back to Nashville. And I was like, wait, Plum, my dad wants me to give you this CD that we made. You don't have to listen to it. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to listen to it right now. And sure enough, she did. And the very next day, we got a phone call because I don't know why we did this, but our home phone number was on the CD, like the back of the CD.
Oh, of course, right? I mean, that was the way to contact you all.
And yeah, she called and she's like, I've never done this before, but I listened to the CD and I hear so much potential in Sarah's music, and I'd love to just bring her to Nashville and really have a conversation. And so we came up to Nashville, and she introduced me to all the major record labels and publishers and booking agents. And at this point, I was 17 years old. So I had
Oh,
just
wow.
graduated high school.
Was that overwhelming or
Yeah,
more exciting?
it
Okay.
was definitely exciting, but I don't feel like I was fully developed in my own skin yet. So I was still very shy and introverted. Um, but I knew that, I had a gift of music, and obviously I was there for a reason. And I felt like, something was going to come out of it. And so I basically had the opportunity to kind of choose who to sign with when I was 18. And
Wow.
I chose Sparrow Records.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, at the time they were EMI, now they're Capitol. And yeah, I began my music career, moved to Nashville and did the whole touring thing for a few years. And, you know, as quickly as I did well and had a little bit of success, I rose to the top, and then I kind of came crashing down, as it does happen to most people.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, at 18 though, to get right out of high school, you moved to Nashville.
Yeah.
And put a record out, and you're getting on tour, and I'm sure like some of the songs got like, radio play and everything else, right?
Yes.
I mean, how that must have been such an exciting moment. Like, whoa, like this is really happening.
Yeah. I mean, it was super exciting, you know, but at the same time, I definitely took it for granted. Like I didn't know how to appreciate it, because I think I kind of got to my head, and I had an ego a little bit. I'm like, of course that's what happened, you know. And then I
Right.
lost.
Yeah.
And then now, you know, and then I had to build it back up, which I'm very grateful for. But you know, that was just the first part of my story and how it all started. But it never is that easy, you know.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, you put out a couple albums with Sparrow, right, or a couple of records, and then once that you guys kind of split, was that something that you were like, did you feel like defeated, or was it like, okay, like that's fine, I'm gonna just keep going on? Because then you put out some records independently, and then obviously Curb, you have that relationship. But
Yeah.
was that hard to move on, or like once that happened, were you like, is this what I should be doing? I mean, you were probably still pretty young at that point.
Yeah, I was super young. I was probably, see, at this point 21 or 22 when I
Yeah.
left. And so yeah, still so young. And I thought that, I actually went to them and sat down with them and was just like, hey, I think I need to kind of move on from here, thinking that I would just walk into another record label and get another deal just like I did that one, you know.
Yeah.
And I think they were probably about to drop me anyways, because things were just, it was a weird time for the music industry. And so they're like, all right, you're free to go. And so I left clean, easy. And then I realized, oh, this is much harder than I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, I think a lot of people were like, well, yeah, but like, you know, you had that, but you didn't have that much success, and so we need to see more from you. And so I'm like, oh shoot, now I really have to like put in the work. And so I actually ended up losing like everything, and I ended up working at a daycare because I didn't go to college, because I went straight into my career.
Yeah,
You know?
you went straight into music.
And then I ended up getting married at a young age as well. And my husband at the time was like, you know, if you're not going to do music, you're going to have to get a job. I'm like, job. Okay. Well, so, and I knew I loved working with kids. I knew I could do that. And so there was just this little preschool opening down the street. I'm like, oh, sure, I'll get a job there. And so I ended up working like 40 hours a week for a year and a half, making like minimum wage,
Sure.
taking care of babies. And that will humble you really quickly.
Well, were you always working on music during that time period?
I mean, I didn't really have time.
Yeah, it was just work and then home and then back to work.
Yeah, it was a rough season for sure. I'm very thankful for it, you know, but I needed that time to just kind of get humbled.
Right.
And also just find myself away from the music too, because music was my identity for so long, even from a young child.
Mm-hmm.
So to just kind of step away from it for a minute and experience like real life, that was what I needed.
Mm-hmm. And at what point do you kind of return to wanting to get back into music?
So of course I wanted to return to music. But there was a moment where obviously like it was just hard. Like I was going through a lot personally, and I kind of hit rock bottom, and I quit my job, and my husband, he's now my ex-husband, but he was like, all right, he quit his job and he's like, we're going to build this from the ground up. Like, we're going to just put out YouTube covers and treat it like it's our full-time job. And he was my manager, and like we put out high quality like YouTube covers starting in 2013, I think. And I started seeing like so much response from the covers. And like I said, I was in the Christian music church world at the time, and I started getting inquiries like emails and phone calls being like, hey, can you come and play at this conference? Can you come and lead worship at our church? And I'm like, yes. So we were able to like actually start paying our bills from that. And that became the new trajectory. But I also had a love for songwriting. And I honestly thought my time as an artist was over as far as like signing a deal and all of that. I'm like, I had that, that was my window of time. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll just like lead worship and then I'll just like write songs for other artists. And so I had a lot of relationships in Nashville within the CCM industry. So I started meeting with different record labels and pursuing like a publishing deal and that kind of thing. At the time, I sat down with Word Records, who's now Curb, who is my label now. And I'm like, do you guys have any artists that you want me to write for? And they're like, well, yeah, we can set you up some sessions, but do you have anything you've been working on, like just your own artistry? And I'm like, I mean, always I have something. I guess I can send you a few songs. And they're like, great, we'd love to hear that. And so I ended up sending them a few demos of mine, and they're like, we'd love to do a showcase with you as an artist, actually. And I'm like, really? And this was like 2016. And I'm like, sure. So I go in and I did a showcase with some of my originals, and they shook my hand after the meeting and they're like, welcome to Word Records. We'd love to sign you as an artist.
Wow.
I was like, what? It just felt like, a second chance at not even a second chance. I felt like it was fate. Like this was how it was supposed to be, because I wouldn't have had this appreciation for what I have now. And so, yeah, that was 2016. So that was like 7 years ago. And my journey since then has just been all over the map, and even my music has evolved and I've grown up as a human. And so my music has grown up with me, and I've kind of crossed over into the pop world now and more mainstream, and just have such a love for that. And my label has just been so supportive along the way to just give me creative freedom and the grace that I've needed to make mistakes and, even just have different failures that ultimately lead to success. And I feel like I have so much knowledge because of the experience that I've had, but also at the same time, I feel like I'm starting over and just getting started in this new era of music. So it's ever changing.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because you started off really more you put out like a worship record and like more really in the Christian world. I mean, obviously Curb is still a Christian based label, I believe, but your sound, like you said, has definitely evolved. I mean, into more of like a pop sound. Was that something that, like, when you first pitched, like when you that showcase, were you moving in that direction already?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, I did have a clarity and a direction as an artist. I wanted to make Christian music, but make it more fresh and do a pop thing. So I think they were drawn to that because a lot of Christian music just sounds the same.
Right.
And so I'm like, I want to make this like different and fresh. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And so I made an album that I really I do feel like it was fresh for Christian music. But it was just hard because sometimes it can be like such a bubble. And as much as Christian radio is like, yeah, we want different, we want fresh, at the end of the day, they wouldn't play the music, because it didn't sound like everything else.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I just kind of got tired and jaded of the whole like bubble that I felt like I was in. And I just was like, why am I even making one type of like, why am I creating music for this one audience, And I just felt calling to kind of reach a broader audience, and also just to like kind of break the barriers of I still am a Christian. I still believe in God and love Jesus and go to church and all the things. But like why can Christians not make mainstream music? You know, why is it a big deal? I think that should happen more. You know, like there
Right,
can
100%.
be some pop songs in the world and it not be this explicit, nasty song. Like we need more of those songs in the mainstream space. And so I just felt like this is the path that I want to go down. And it's been a journey to get here, you know, and I've had a lot of haters on the internet because when you establish yourself in one world for so long and then you're like, okay, now I'm going to go this way, people think,
Right.
oh, now she's a devil worshiper, you know?
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, wow, yeah, I'm not making music for you guys anyway, so that's fine. You can think that.
Yeah, that's a real Christian response. Um, okay, so at what was that, when you decided to kind of make that move to do more broad stuff and not as, focused in the Christian focused music, like were you nervous about that? You're like, is anyone gonna are people gonna receive this the same way? I mean, obviously people that were fans prior, some people sounds like reached out or were mean or whatever, but like was that something you're like, I'm just gonna do this anyway. I'm not really scared of this. I don't really care.
Yeah, at that point, you know, I'm driven by authenticity. So if it doesn't feel authentic to me, I just can't do it. And I knew that I couldn't stay in that space forever. Like even if I was successful and making money and having number ones, I just wouldn't be happy living in that world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that I had to do it for myself to just like step out. So it wasn't like I was afraid because I was willing to fail. And to be honest, it didn't go super well to start. Like I released my first pop album in 2020 of all years. And it was kind of a flop. You know, I don't know if it was because of the time that I released it or if it was because it was just such a shift from everything that I had ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but, you know, I was like a little bit discouraged by that. I was like, man, maybe I should just go back, to writing Christian music because that's where all my fans are, you know. But I just felt like in my gut, no, I think I need to keep going on this path and see what happens and like give myself a chance because I do have to kind of look at myself at this point as like, okay, you're kind of you're starting over as a new artist now. Like
Mm-hmm.
people know you as this brand of an artist. And so with that kind of mindset, I just was like, all right, I've done this before. Everything fell apart and I had to rebuild. I can do it again. And so I'm willing to like put in the work and we'll see what happens, you know? I don't know. I hold everything very loosely and I'm very happy making the music and I personally am proud of it and that is like what I value the most and I know it's helping people and
Right. I mean, people are obviously resonating with it. Like, was there like, I mean, I know you got a lot of followers on all the social media platforms, but like, if you looked at TikTok exclusively, was there something that happened there that like a song blew up and you're like, whoa, like I wasn't expecting that, or like what was kind of like a big milestone or validation since 2020 putting out your first like, okay, I'm gonna start over again. Here's this pop
Mhm.
record.
Yeah. Well, everything kind of blew up actually this year.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah, I haven't had that big of a following until March of this year. And that is when I released Get Back Your Fight,
Oh, so your latest song is the one that really took everything to the next level for you.
pretty much. I
Tell
had,
me about that. That's awesome.
I mean, I had some other songs that had some success. You know, I did a lot in like the EDM space with Armin van Buren and
Yeah,
uh,
you've had some big features and stuff as
yeah,
well.
like that stuff did pretty well. But if you're looking at the following, yeah, that all kind of just happened.
Well, I
So
was just curious because I mean, you've had obviously big records before, and I was just curious about like that whole moment. Like, if was that beforehand? But it sounds like this is all recent that everything blew up there. So you already had success prior to the TikTok or what moment or whatever this viral moment was.
yeah. Yeah, but as far as TikTok and Instagram goes, so I was yeah, so this year, and I'm just now kind of talking about this publicly. So about a year and a half ago, I went through a divorce, and really, just had to, I mean, it was a huge life change. I was married for 10 years, and
Wow.
so I had to kind of find myself, away from this person. And I didn't know who I was. And I had made all this music, and I felt like, and I had to move, and it was just like this new scenery, new, fresh scene change in life. And I was just like, all right, what do you want to do, Sarah? Because you are now in control of your own destiny. Nothing and no one is holding you back. Like, what is it that you want to do? And I thought, well, I want to produce. Like, that's what I've always wanted to do. So I have a room here on Music Row that at my label, and they were so gracious to let me have. And I just kind of was like, all right, I'm going to shut out all the voices, because I had this whole album done, and I had always worked with like co-writers and producers. And I'm like, I'm going to shut out the voices, and I'm going to just be alone and like find my voice again and find my strength and even like my fight. And that's how I found a lot of my therapy, is just really getting lost in the music. And I was watching like tons of YouTube tutorials and calling my producer friends, being like, how do you work this plugin?
Yeah.
And just like spent all of my energy on that. And in the meantime, these songs were coming out. And one of the songs was Get Back Your Fight. And my label was like, we want you active on Instagram and TikTok, because that's like the thing now that everyone's looking at. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to like heal from all of this and learn how to produce and be a social media influencer?
Right. It's a lot. I mean, before, if you were an artist, it was just, I'm going to write the songs and I'm going to do the tour, and everyone else is going to get me a print, ads or whatever, get my song on this. And now it's like, everyone needs you to be like this all the time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Gosh, yeah. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to do like all the silly trends and everything. Like, how can I stand out and just like,
The
make
dance challenges.
yeah. I don't know. So I just set up I turned around my camera on my phone, and I just started like filming my own process of like, guys, this is what I'm doing today. I'm learning how to, produce. And I would film my process and I'd post it. And I noticed people were interested. They're like, oh, a female producing? That's rare to see,
Right.
which is sad, but
I know. And it's funny because I've mentioned this before on the show, is like, if I have a Mac right here with GarageBand, like I could tell anyone, oh yeah, I'm a producer, like, because I can just drop like a
yeah,
file in there. But for a female, it's so much more difficult. It's like,
I
oh,
know.
you're a producer, huh? And it's like, well, yeah, I've done all this stuff. And meanwhile, some guys like, well, I know how to, I downloaded whatever Logic on my computer, so like I'm a
Yeah,
producer now. I
yeah,
use this loop beat that I was already pre-made, and I'm a producer
I
now.
know, I know. And I just was determined. I'm like, I just really want to like learn how to do this. I'm tired of being dependent on someone else. And so I did. And I just noticed that people were interested in me doing that. And of course, I'm a song like a top liner, which is lyric and melody. So I write
Mhm.
lyric and melody first and foremost. So like as I'm making these tracks, lyric and melody would come on top of it. And so songs would come out. So one day, Get Back Your Fight came. And I had a feeling when I wrote it, I'm like, this one feels special. And I just had written the first verse and the chorus, and I put it out on my Instagram. And immediately I saw the numbers and the comments and the shares, and I'm like, this is something's happening here.
Yeah.
And people are really relating to the lyrics in the song. And so I quickly was like, all right. A couple days later, I'm like, I got to write a second verse. So I wrote the
Oh,
second
so
verse.
that all happened and you didn't even have the song finished yet at that point?
I just have
That's
like,
awesome.
it was like bare minimum, you can still see it on my Instagram. It's like I pinned it. It's my top one that I pinned. Um, but yeah, it was just like, the bare bones of a track and the top line of the song. And wrote the second verse, put that one out on Instagram and TikTok, did the same thing. And all of a sudden, well, actually, it was a lot, but then it actually took like probably 3 weeks, and I had left for almost a whole month of March. And I posted that on March 1st. And then I think I had like 40,000 followers on Instagram. And by the end of March, I had grown probably 60 to 70,000 followers
Oh my gosh.
from that one song. And my label was like, all right, Sarah, we're going to need you to finish this, and we need to make this the priority. And I'm like, okay, cool. Who can I call to like co-produce, you know? And because that was my immediate reaction, because I had never anything on my own. And then I sat there and I'm like, you know what? People are responding to like what I did, you know? And I'm like, I think I can finish this on my own and not bring in anybody else. And
yeah, you already had people, like you said, people were into it, and it was just what you're doing anyway. So
exactly. So I just was like, you know what, I'm going to do this for myself. And so I just zoned in. I finished the song 100%, produced it and wrote it. Nobody else. And I called my brother. He lives in Oregon, and he is more of a live mixing engineer, but he's been wanting to do more mixing, just, you know, different records. And I'm like, hey, do you want to mix this song? I kind of want to keep it in the family. Like, it's just, I don't know, just for personal reasons. I'm like,
yeah, that's cool.
And so he mixed it. And
wow.
we released it. And like since then, yeah, it's crazy just the followers. Now it's like, so that was March, 40,000, and now it's like I think 130,000 followers sit on Instagram, and TikTok is the same. It's just been like people are responding and following and sharing, and it's been really cool to finally have you know, after being in this industry for so long and trying different things, and you know, it's just trial and error and putting yourself out there. It feels like a breath of, you know, it's like a release of like, okay, like something has resonated, and something is finally feeling good. So
well, congratulations. That's so amazing.
Thank you.
Can you, oh my gosh, what's going on with my microphone?
Malfunction.
Hello, is it fixed now?
Yeah, you sound clear to me.
Did I sound clear before? It was weird. It was like, oh, okay, awesome. Anyway, that was I guess only on my end, the hiccup. But no, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, so that's the most recent one you put out is the one that you've done all the production on your own. That's everything you like. So moving forward, is that going to be the new formula? Like you should just write it. I'm just gonna write everything myself. I'm gonna produce everything myself. Maybe get your brother in the mix and
maybe for the next album. I mean, I have a full album that has 16 songs, and I did that with my other co-writers and producers. And so, which they're amazing. I worked with a team out in LA.
Uh-huh.
And also kept that pretty tight. So it was just the four of us that did most of it, brought in a couple outside writers, but so that's all coming out in September.
Mm-hmm.
But I think after that, I mean, I'm always like a year ahead, you know, so
which is probably a good thing, right? You're not trying to speed up to get something done.
Totally. So I already have a lot of the songs for like the next project, and those I've done mostly by myself. And at first I'm like, oh yeah, the next project I'm just gonna do 100% me. But now I'm kind of like, I do like co-writing, and I think I needed this time to find my sound and truly like, okay, this is my next thing. I already know, like I have the clearest vision that I think when I can bring other people in that I trust, and they can come alongside that and make it better, you know? Mm-hmm. So maybe some by myself, but I still love working with my people. So
very cool. Well, congratulations on, that's so cool that happened, especially on a song that was done all you. And so I'm excited about that. You said an album coming out in September, and then you've got songs ready for next year. It sounds like as well.
Yes, and then I got Christmas songs coming out, more Christmas.
Awesome.
Yeah, always
Yeah, I think I saw on your Instagram. You're like Christmas in July. Like, were you filming something? Or there's something. I think.
I was
Is that?
recording Christmas songs. So
Oh, amazing.
I already have one Christmas project that I released a couple years ago that I'm
Yeah, I saw that on your Spotify.
yeah, and it's very classic, traditional sounding. And this year we're adding 4 new tracks to it. So it's kind of like an extended version, but
Awesome.
you always have to stay ahead. So
In
we
that
have
similar sound, or is it going to be more? Are you going pop, pop, pop?
no, to me, Christmas is its own genre.
100%.
Like when I think of Christmas music, I think of like the jazzy, traditional, like, Nat King Cole, Bing Crosby. That's
Right.
cozy vibe. So I kept it in that space. It's totally different from pop.
Okay. Cool.
Like a whole new character that I go into.
Right. Awesome. Are you
Yeah.
doing any shows around Nashville, or doing a tour or anything? Or
Um, I don't have a tour lined up, but I do have just some like, one-offs that I'm doing and some radio events this year. I don't know if there's anything around Nashville. We're definitely going to plan a Christmas show in Nashville this year. We did that last year and it was amazing.
where did that take place at?
That was at the Analog.
Oh, cool.
It was
Yeah, in
just
the hotel, right? And there's okay. I've seen the space. I've never been there, but they get some really cool shows there.
yes, it was so beautiful. We did it last year and it was like all cocktail attire and we had like a jazz band and
Wow.
it's just like so special. One of my favorite nights ever, probably. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for doing this. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Now you know my whole life story.
I do. And it's a fantastic story. And I can't wait to hear the album. And I have one more question before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Oh man. Yes, I would say be consistent. That's been my word for the year is consistency. I think a lot of artists start looking at other artists and other, people that they want to be and they compare themselves in their own, situations to that. And you just can't do that. I think that kills your creativity. So just like be authentic, don't compare. Use the resources that are in front of you. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to have the full shebang to like put yourself out there, even if it's just you in a bedroom with your guitar or your piano, just like you have a free resource on your phone, with like, especially now, social media, you can put yourself out there. And yeah, I think the more you do it, the better you're going to get, and embrace the journey because it could take, and it probably will take a long time, and you're going to fail, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to change, but just give yourself some grace and have fun. Don't take yourself too seriously. Just have fun because it is very fun. Bringing it backward.